My sister thought inheriting the company meant inheriting control. She erased my name from every document, but she didn't realize the secret patent was registered under mine. Her betrayal became the evidence that crowned me the rightful successor. The room was suffocating with tension. Relatives sat stiffly in leather chairs, their eyes darting between the lawyer and my sister, who leaned back with a smile that stretched too wide. The lawyer's voice carried through the silence, each word slicing the air as he read the will aloud. My father's legacy, the company he had built from nothing, was being handed over. When the papers were placed on the polished mahogany table, I leaned forward, scanning the lines. My name wasn't there. Not once. My sister's grin widened, her fingers tapping the table as if she had already won. The betrayal wasn't spoken. It was written in ink, deliberate and cruel. I felt the weight of every eye in the room waiting for my reaction. I forced myself to remain still, my face calm, though inside my chest burned. My sister glanced at me, her expression smug, as if daring me to challenge her. I didn't. Not yet. The lawyer cleared his throat, closing the folder. That concludes the reading. The silence that followed was louder than any words. My sister stood, thanking everyone, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I stayed seated, my hands clenched beneath the table, already knowing this wasn't the end. Days later, I walked into the company office, the place that had once felt like home. The walls were lined with photographs of my father, his achievements displayed proudly. But when I reached the records room, my stomach twisted. I pulled out the files, flipping through page after page. My name was gone. Erased. Not a trace remained of my position, my contributions, my years of dedication. It was as if I had never existed. I stood there, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the papers trembling in my hands. My sister hadn't just claimed control, she had erased me from history. Her ambition had turned into cruelty, stripping me of identity, of recognition, of belonging. A secretary walked past, pausing briefly. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. I forced a smile. "Yes. Just reviewing." But inside I was unraveling. The sting of betrayal cut deeper than any business loss. It wasn't about money. It was about dignity, about being erased by someone who shared my blood. The first board meeting under her leadership was a performance. She walked in wearing a tailored suit, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her confidence radiating like a spotlight. She greeted the directors warmly, shaking hands, laughing as if she had always belonged at the head of the table. I sat quietly at the far end, observing. She spoke with authority, outlining plans, making promises, painting herself as the savior of the company. The directors nodded, some impressed, others hesitant. Her eyes flicked toward me once, a fleeting glance filled with triumph. She thought she had silenced me, underestimated me, dismissed me as irrelevant. I leaned back, my expression unreadable. Let her believe she had won. Let her bask in her illusion of control. I knew something she didn't, and that knowledge gave me strength. The meeting ended with applause, her smile brighter than ever. She walked out surrounded by allies while I followed quietly, unnoticed. But I wasn't defeated. I was waiting. Later that week, as I walked through the corridors, a loyal employee approached me. His voice was low, his eyes cautious. "Not everyone trusts her," he whispered. "She's making changes too quickly. People are nervous." I paused, studying his face. He wasn't lying. His words carried the weight of truth, of quiet rebellion. "She erased me," I said softly. He nodded. "We know. But some of us still believe in you." His support was a spark in the darkness, a reminder that I wasn't alone. The seeds of doubt had already been planted among the staff. My sister's reign wasn't as solid as she believed. I thanked him, my voice steady, though inside I felt a surge of hope. Her betrayal had created cracks, and those cracks were widening. That night, as I sat alone in my study, the memory returned. Years ago, I had filed a patent in silence, a decision made without fanfare. It was for a design my father had admired, a project he believed could change the company's future. I remembered the day clearly, the quiet office, the papers spread across my desk, the pen in my hand as I signed my name. At the time, it had felt like a precaution, a way to protect something valuable. Now that memory burned brighter. My sister had erased me from documents, but she had overlooked the one thing that mattered most. The patent was mine. Legally, undeniably mine. I leaned back in my chair, the realization settling over me. She thought betrayal had crowned her the victor. But she had missed the detail that could undo everything. The silence of the room was heavy, but inside me a storm was building. The betrayal wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something far greater. It was late evening when I noticed her car parked outside a restaurant downtown. Something about the way she slipped inside, glancing over her shoulder, made me follow. I kept my distance, moving quietly, my heart pounding with anticipation. Through the glass window, I saw her seated at a corner table, surrounded by two men in suits. I edged closer, pretending to check my phone, while my ears strained to catch fragments of her voice. She spoke with arrogance, her tone sharp, her laughter cutting. "I've erased her from everything," she boasted, swirling her wine. "No one will even remember she existed in this company." The words hit me harder than I expected. My sister wasn't just ambitious, she was ruthless. She reveled in my erasure, confident that her plan was flawless. But arrogance is a dangerous weakness. She spoke too freely, unaware that her own sibling was listening from the shadows. I stepped back, my pulse racing. Her betrayal was no longer suspicion. It was confession. And I knew then that her downfall would come from the very pride she flaunted so carelessly. The next morning I walked into the company archives, a place few bothered to visit. Dust clung to the shelves, the air smelled of old paper and forgotten history. I moved through rows of boxes, my fingers brushing against faded labels until I found the section I needed. I pulled out a folder, my hands trembling. Inside were the patent papers I had filed years ago. The ink was still sharp, my name printed clearly, undeniable and permanent. I held the document close, the weight of it grounding me. This wasn't just paper. It was proof, the kind of proof that could shatter her illusion of control. As I stood there, the silence of the room wrapped around me. I remembered my father's words when I first drafted the design. "Protect what you create. One day it may protect you." He had been right. The patent wasn't just a technical achievement. It was my shield, my weapon. I tucked the papers into my bag, careful and deliberate. My sister had erased me from records, but she hadn't touched this. She couldn't. And now I had the undeniable evidence that would turn the tide. That afternoon I met with Mr. Harris, a lawyer my father had trusted for decades. His office smelled faintly of leather and coffee, the shelves lined with thick books that seemed to hold centuries of secrets. I laid the patent papers on his desk. He adjusted his glasses, scanning the lines carefully. Minutes passed in silence before he looked up, his expression firm. "This is solid," he said. "Legally binding. It gives you ownership of the company's most valuable asset." My breath caught. "So she can't take this from me?" He shook his head. "No. She may manipulate records, but this patent is untouchable. It's registered under your name, and that makes you the rightful owner of its rights. In fact, it strengthens your claim to leadership." Relief washed over me, mingled with determination. The betrayal had cut deep, but now I had the weapon to fight back. Mr. Harris leaned forward, his voice steady. "Use this wisely. Evidence like this doesn't just prove ownership, it exposes deceit." I nodded, my resolve hardening. My sister thought she had erased me, but she had overlooked the one thing that mattered most. Later that week, I received a call from Mr. Daniels, a senior manager who had worked with my father for years. He asked to meet privately, his tone cautious. We sat in a quiet cafe, the hum of conversation around us masking our words. He leaned in, his voice low. "Your sister has been manipulating documents. She pressured staff to sign off on changes, erased your name from files, and threatened anyone who questioned her." I listened, my jaw tight. "And the patent?" I asked. He shook his head firmly. "She couldn't touch it. Everyone knows it's yours. She tried to dismiss it, but legally it's beyond her reach." His words gave me strength. The tide was turning and people were beginning to see through her facade. Mr. Daniels placed his hand on mine briefly. "We believe in you. When the time comes, you'll have support." I left the cafe with a renewed sense of purpose. Her betrayal had created enemies within her own ranks, and now even her allies were beginning to doubt her. In the days that followed, I worked in silence. I gathered copies of the patent, secured legal documents, and collected testimonies from those willing to speak. Each piece of evidence was carefully stored, hidden in places she would never find. At home, I spread the papers across my desk, the weight of them filling the room. I organized them meticulously, each detail a thread in the web I was weaving. My sister believed she had erased me, but I was preparing to expose her betrayal in front of everyone. At night I lay awake, my mind racing with plans. I imagined the moment when the truth would be revealed, when her arrogance would collapse under the weight of undeniable proof. My silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. I moved through each day with calm precision, smiling when necessary, speaking little but always watching. She thought she had won, but she didn't realize the storm I was building quietly, patiently. The evidence was mine, and soon, it would be the weapon that ended her reign. The shareholders' meeting was held in the grand hall, its chandeliers glowing above rows of polished tables. The air was thick with anticipation, whispers weaving through the crowd like threads of doubt. My sister stood at the front, her posture tall, her voice confident as she addressed the room. She believed she had secured her throne. I waited until she finished her speech, then rose slowly, carrying a folder in my hands. The sound of my chair scraping against the floor drew eyes toward me. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady. "Before we proceed," I said, "there is something the board must see." I laid the patent papers on the table, sliding them toward the directors. The ink gleamed under the lights, my name clear and undeniable. Gasps rippled through the room. My sister's face drained of color, her smile faltering as the truth unfolded. "This patent," I continued, "is registered under my name. It represents the company's most valuable innovation. Ownership lies with me, not her." The silence that followed was deafening. Then murmurs rose, questions fired, eyes turned toward her with suspicion. The room shifted, power changing hands in an instant. Her allies tried to defend her at first, voices raised in protest. But the evidence was too strong, the papers too clear. One by one they faltered, their loyalty crumbling under the weight of truth. I watched as directors exchanged glances, their confidence in her dissolving. "She erased me from records," I said firmly, "but she couldn't erase the law. This patent proves her betrayal." My sister's voice cracked as she tried to speak. "It's a misunderstanding," she insisted, her hands trembling. But the room no longer believed her. Mr. Daniels, the senior manager who had once confessed her manipulations, stood and addressed the board. She pressured staff, altered documents, and silenced dissent. We all saw it. "But this patent is untouchable. It belongs to her sister." The betrayal was laid bare, her downfall swift. The allies who had once cheered her now turned away, unwilling to be dragged down with her. She stood alone, her authority shattered, her reign collapsing before her eyes. After the meeting, I found her in my father's old office, staring out the window. The city lights flickered below, but her shoulders sagged, her confidence gone. I closed the door behind me. "You could have chosen family," I said quietly. "Instead you chose greed." She turned, her eyes red, though no tears fell. "I thought I deserved it," she whispered. "I thought I was stronger." I stepped closer, my voice calm but firm. "Strength isn't built on betrayal. You erased me, but you couldn't erase the truth. Family should have been stronger than ambition." Her silence was heavy, her gaze dropping to the floor. She had no defense, no excuses left. The victory wasn't in shouting or anger. It was in her silence, in the way her pride crumbled. I left her there, the office echoing with the emptiness of her choices. My victory wasn't cruel, it was certain. The board reconvened that evening, their decision swift and unanimous. They recognized me as the rightful successor, the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders. As I stood before them, the patent papers in hand, I felt both the gravity of the moment and the satisfaction of justice served. My father's legacy was safe, not stolen, not twisted by betrayal. The directors applauded, their voices steady with support. Employees who had doubted now looked at me with renewed trust. The crown wasn't a symbol of power. It was a symbol of survival, of resilience, of truth prevailing over deceit. I accepted the role with dignity, my heart steady. The company was mine to lead, not because I demanded it, but because I had earned it. Later that night I sat alone in my office, the city quiet outside. The papers lay on my desk, the evidence of betrayal and the proof of victory. I reflected on the journey, the pain of erasure, the sting of betrayal, the silence of nights spent planning. Betrayal can destroy trust, but it can also reveal strength. My sister's cruelty had forced me to fight, to uncover resilience I hadn't known I possessed. My revenge wasn't in cruelty, it was in reclaiming what was mine, in walking away with dignity, in leaving her to face the emptiness of her choices. I realized then that power isn't about control. It's about honesty, about protecting what matters. My father's legacy wasn't just a company, it was a lesson. And I had learned it well. As I turned off the lights, I whispered to myself, family should have been stronger than greed. The words lingered, a reminder of what was lost and of what I had gained.